your brand needs to do one thing today, but the world moves and your brand also needs to be responsive to that. So look at Coca-Cola, for example. They've had all kinds of interesting brands. They've changed the labels, they changed the formulation. Like, I think about the only thing that hasn't changed about their brand is like the font and the red.
I was going to say the red.
But they've evolved to meet like the zeitgeist of the moment. So encouraging people to think of their brand as a living being thing and respond and step up to meet the moment in the way they communicate and the stories they tell.
And your core marketing principle is actually remembering that humans are on the other side of marketing campaigns. I actually shared it with my team, and I said, this is so important to remember when we're asking for our foundation, when we're telling people to join, when we're telling people to support, to make the changes with us and everything else, to remember that there's people on the other side, not just trying to reach them so they open their wallets to us. It has to be something that we can respectfully trade in that sense.
But one of the goals, and one of the ones that's most interesting to me, is to democratize the idea of who can be a philanthropist. You give $5, if you give 5 minutes, you are a philanthropist.
Mhm.
You are a philanthropist. Your philanthropy matters as much as Bill Gates, as much as Rockefeller Foundation, as much of any of these things. You are a philanthropist, and own that title and claim that title and use it, because explain yourself as a philanthropist. I care about food access. I care about environmental justice. I care about death care.
So that's what marketing is about, whereas it should be, like you say, about Welcome to Compassiviste Dialogues. I'm your host, Ali Horiat. My goal in this program is to educate our audience about various global issues and how we can help. This is part 2 with Lizy Freudmann from One More Thing, LLC in New Orleans. We spoke the first time a lot about her personal side and her life and build up her character to really get into the second part, which is more about the impact she's making. Lizy, welcome back. And before we start, I am going to say we were on two sides of a momentous period in your history, and you studying American history and civilization. This is amazing. So we spoke in the first episode about a week before the elections, and we speak a week after the elections. And Donald Trump is going to be our president in about 2 months. I've spoken with people in the US on both sides. I've spoken to people who are extremely excited like it was Christmas. And I've actually had people, I had one guest, a professor from New York, who asked if we could postpone our show for a couple of weeks because she was taking some time off. That's how much it had affected her. And I'm in a place where I'm starting to think, why are people so emotional this time around? Because I've seen Republicans lose and I've seen Democrats lose, and it's never been this heated. Why are you so heated about this time?
Because we knew what we were getting and we signed up for a second helping. I found his first presidency to be unbearable. I felt it was bad for business. It was bad for my mental health. It was bad for my physical health. It was bad for the environment. I think the people in my life felt materially less safe with him in office. And that culminated in January 6th, which was the insurrection in which he illegally tried to overthrow the results of the election. And so I don't understand why my fellow Americans would sign up for another round of that, in particular after we've seen a fascist uprising on January 6th. I cannot. I don't know what on earth could possess somebody to be gleefully excited about this besides anticipating the suffering of other people and wanting to feel like they specifically are on the inside and the rest of us are out in the cold. And I would not hesitate to say that to your friend's face if they asked me. I'm very interested in my career. I've done some work with cults, like scary, the kind of cults that you hear about on the news, but also like if you think about cults from an academic perspective, North Korea is sort of a cult in the sense that there's a very restricted group of people who are allowed and not allowed to do things, and they have a charismatic leader who sends his goons to enforce. And the lack of education about what goes on in the outside world is a very important piece of that. And many of the cult scholars, like Janja Lalich and my client, Daniela Mestenek Young, are making a very convincing case that the United States is now a cult, like North Korea, like some of the other extremist states that we see in this world. So that's pretty sad for me.
Okay, so let me ask you this because it's fascinating you say that. I love my history, and a lot of what I do has been based on a lot of the ways that I see history being cyclical in our world, not just the United States. And there's a reason cults happen. There's a reason
Yes.
fascism happens. Fascism doesn't happen out of the blue. When everybody's safe and comfortable and the world's beautiful, you don't just get up and say, I want to mess all of this up and I want to do
Yeah, of
something really
course.
extremist, right? So I always tell people, even the whole Bin Laden saga and Al Qaeda didn't happen because a billionaire kid felt like, never mind being a billionaire and enjoying life. I'm just going to do chaos for the rest of my
Yeah,
life,
yeah, I completely
right?
agree.
So let's go
There's a
there.
reason.
What do you
So
think is the reason for
I
fascism
want
in
to
the
be,
U.S.?
I want to be very clear that I am not the cult expert, and we're welcome to speak to my client and friend Daniela, or you try to get Janja Lalich, who I think is doing incredible work. Um, that I'm not the expert. I listen to the experts, and but I'm finding it very resonant in this moment because there's a lot of uncertainty. There was just everybody was like, "Oh no," during COVID. I don't think some people believe that that could happen to them. I personally have never been a person who is naturally optimistic about like thinking that everything will always go according to plan, and like the times where it doesn't go according to plan are the outliers. I think that like things are always going to be chaotic and wild, and if they go according to plan, that's the outlier. And so, the COVID lockdowns sucked, but I was emotionally in a like my constitution and my personality allowed me to like handle it with some amount of like, okay, well, this is what it is now. And it makes some amount of sense to me that we're dealing with something that nobody really knows exactly. And so we're all trying to figure it out. And it's very uncomfortable, but it is what it is. And other people were like, I take this very personally. This is an attack on me because this has interrupted my plans. And knowing that they could be so disrupted, I think have made them afraid, and they're looking for stability. And one of the easiest ways to feel stable, and it's an illusion of stability, it is not real, is to say, I am in the in group and these people are on the out group. So if I'm celebrating that Trump wins, it's because I know that I'm part of the smart, special people who got the secret coded message. And the charismatic leader invited me into his special group, and I supported him, so I will be rewarded. Um, and everybody else didn't get the memo, and let's laugh at them. Yeah, I that's what I think.
You know what? It's kind of like gang membership. In gang
It's gang
membership,
memberships. You could say gangs
yeah,
are cults too. There's a lot of
exactly.
ways.
And there's a lot of reasons why people go into gangs. And when you notice, people who go, let's just call it criminal gangs, when you enter a criminal gang, whether you are very wealthy or whether you're desperate and you enter a criminal gang, in both instances, you're doing it because you feel like in numbers, you're a little more protected, and you can do what you're going to do to get to the goal that you want to in a more strategic manner, so to speak. And the probability of you reaching your goal is much higher. So you make that choice to do that. However, there has to be a reason for, this kind of polarization. There has to be a reason why, and it's not a small number of people. Like if you were speaking of some very, you know, basic developing country where there's really a lack of almost everything, and then here comes, they find oil out of nowhere, and here's one human who owns all the oil, and is it, it's normally he, and it's almost always a he, and he's a dictator, and then he enforces everything, and you go, I'll give you a real life example. Venezuela, everybody's in poverty. The country has some of the most gold in the world, some of the most oil in the world. You would think it would be another Saudi Arabia, in a sense, or the UAE or Qatar, right? Or Brunei. But it's not. You don't see Venezuelans walking around and people saying money's walking around the way they do when you see someone says, "Oh, I'm from Dubai," right? You don't see that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why is that happening? Because there's that kind of control that one person can have in the country. But in the United States, that is not the case. The fact that, let's just say, Elon Musk won the elections, so to speak, with his presence, that, whether you like him or not, it's not the point. To me, it's learn.
Don't like him,
Yeah,
just
but
in case
I
you were
know.
wondering.
No, but I'm saying whether we like people or not, the more important thing for progress is to learn, is to educate ourselves. And I'm very happy learning from people I like and from people I don't like. So, putting the like or the dislike aside, think of it this way. Elon Musk said, I need to do something about the United States in the way that I believe it should be. He goes and he buys Twitter. Nobody pays attention to him. Everybody thinks he's a psycho. He goes and he buys Twitter. And a lot of people think, oh, he just wants some, I don't know, some platform. He just wants to, boost himself or become more popular or something like that. But no, he bought the biggest microphone in the United States.
Object here with your core thesis that people weren't paying attention. I knew my friends, the people in my circles, were like, this is Elon's attempt to subvert democracy by taking the power away from the people.
And nobody reacted.
Well, I reacted, but I'm only one person, so
Maybe a few like you reacted, but that's not enough people. When
yes.
you look at the amount of people on X and the amount of people that are functioning on X, an amount of Democrats who are using X to kind of,
I know it's a
right?
unfortunately yes, yeah. I mean,
So,
he
so
has
that's a
a
strategy move. And then you look at the Democratic side, and they have everybody from Barack Obama rapping Eminem on stage all the way to Taylor Swift, and nothing, flat. That is a problem. And every celebrity was up on stage. Every celebrity was pushing, for votes, from Taylor Swift to Barack Obama to everybody you could think of, Oprah, Beyonce, all the celebrities. Anyways, the point for me was that all kind of didn't work. The whole let's get the celebrities out there, they'll influence people. All of the, Beyonce's Beehive and all of the Swifties and all these people come together. That's it. That's the elections right there. But it didn't happen that way. Those people turned around and
no, it
said,
did not.
we will come and pay the few $100s to watch you in concert. We love your music, but I'm sorry, I don't relate to you when it comes to politics because I don't think you know what you're talking about. I'm going to go vote the way I want to vote. That's really how it turned out, in the reality of it. So to me, the voting for Trump, I'm thinking, may not necessarily be the cult. It may be that this is the moment of a liberation that needs leadership in the void before it becomes fascism. Because a lot of revolutions start with the liberation movement. So if you look at Cuba, for example, when Castro came in and he, say, liberated Cuba and the revolution happened, it wasn't meant to be the way it ended up for the rest of the years after that.
So my question for you is, what do you think Castro thought? Because I would argue that it was always a power grab for Castro, and it was just dressed up in the language of
Exactly.
revolution.
Right. You
And
see?
I would say, that this is the same thing. I don't agree with you that this is that the choice to vote away from Taylor Swift and Beyonce and all those other celebrities is people making a reasoned decision, that it's not they don't that Taylor Swift doesn't have their best interest in mind. I think that what they feel is Taylor Swift is a golden child, America's elite, a billionaire. She could not possibly understand And the only I can like her music, but I want to tear her down. She is not me. Does not speak for me. She isn't me. And I feel that I feel that there's a strong in-group out-group dynamic, which is really one of the core
But
tenets
Trump
of
is a lot
cults.
further. Trump is a lot further to people than Taylor Swift is, because Taylor Swift
I
didn't
agree.
grow up, in a
I
Manhattan
agree.
penthouse. So
I
why would they
completely
resonate with
agree,
Donald Trump then?
because he says, I can fix it for you. I am here to be your savior. Only I can fix it.
Harris
That
said
is,
the same
those
thing.
are,
Harris,
yeah,
but
she,
it didn't work. When
but
she said it didn't work.
it, because her followers aren't in a cult. And they are busy arguing internally about the
Mhm.
best path forward, whereas Trump's followers are like blind allegiance to him. You know, on the left, there's just been all
So
this
there's
discussion.
faith and trust in your leader on one side, and on the other side, there is this ideology that we subscribe to because we feel the
Yes,
democratic ideology is a better ideology, but we understand that the people leading that ideology today, we've lost trust
for
in them.
people. Yes, yeah. I mean, I think that I think that if but the Republican Party is no longer the Republican Party, it is the party
Oh
of
yeah,
Trump.
it's
It is
Trump. Yeah,
MAGA. So I don't think that saying like Republicans, such
hmm
as they were 15 years ago,
I agree.
um, I don't think that you would see such blatant kowtowing.
hmm
You wouldn't see Marco Rubio, who's got this appointment, who like has like said in the past 10 years that like people are going to have to be accountable for their bootlicking to Trump or whatever it was. And now he's like bootlicking Trump. He's like, this is our leader. We're getting in line. We absolutely get in line behind the guy. And the Democrats are like, nah, we want the party to represent us and we want to reshape the party and we don't like any of our leaders and we're going to argue about it a lot, and like we can't get behind a candidate really unequivocally. I mean, if Trump left the Republican Party, all of his followers would leave with him.
hmm I could see that.
And there is no person in the Democratic Party who would leave and then all of their followers would leave with them.
hmm
Some maybe, but others would say, no, we're here for the work. We're not here for the person.
They're here for the ideology. They believe
Yes,
in the ideology of what the Democratic Party stands for. But I really believe that the place where the world is today, and it's not just the United States. I mean, you're seeing it in Europe. You're seeing fascism rise in Europe again, and it is very difficult to understand that for somebody who, for most people who've not lived in Europe, because Europe was the center stage of World War II, World War One as well. But World War One was distant in a way that we now look at it as a history that happened, not at events that we remember. Whereas World War II feels for Europeans as events that we remember still, because it was just one generation past, really. And so it was horrific, right? It was horrific on all sides. I mean, it wasn't just the Holocaust. There was so much horrific stuff that happened that nobody wants to revisit that. So to see fascism rise, it's kind of like, whoa, how are we here again? How are we in this place again? How do we not manage to quell this? And the problem is the left in Europe couldn't manage Europe. And so it's falling apart. And because it's falling apart, the people on the outside start coming in, the people who weren't given voices because those were dangerous voices were coming in and saying, these are the ways that we can save ourselves. And so people start ascribing to those voices because, hey, why not? If you're on a cruise ship and it's sinking and somebody tells you, look, for $100 I can put you on a raft, most people are not thinking ethically at that point. They're not thinking, no, you know what, that's not fair, because there are people who may not have that $100 and they shouldn't die. We should all be equally proportioned to the raft.
yes,
People will just pay that $100. That's what's happening in the world right now. People are looking for some kind of security, and they're finding it in these charismatic leaders the same way they found it in fascism during World War
before,
II.
yeah. I'm not surprised by it. I'm
Yeah.
saddened by it, but I'm not surprised by it.
But do you not see the optimism in the fact that people are in a place where they are voting such that they seek some kind of liberation from the grip or the shackles of politics, in the sense that I want to live my life. I want it to be the best that it can be. And I don't want, either side, especially in the US, where it's not really a democracy, it's one or the other. You're picking one of two evils all the time. And so at the end of the day, people get tired of that. So I think this is a break for people saying, we don't want, to always be Republican or Democrat. We want to really have a say, a direct vote, a direct democracy, not pick somebody that, has funded $500 million to come up on stage and say, pick me. And in that sense, this is
Yeah,
where the
not
danger
nothing
is
like
for me.
Trump. Trump
Yeah.
never spent billions of dollars to get himself on stage or pay. He never paid off a crowd. Come on.
No,
Trump
no,
has been paying off the
he
crowd
has,
since he was a
but
kid.
no, no, no. Both sides have been doing it, right? That's what I mean. You've got two sides that basically come out and they have the best circus act, and whoever has the better circus act normally wins, because it's never the case where the elections are 80% on one side because everybody is seeing the truth or everybody's seeing a reality of some sort. It's always, within that 5% range of the population that the elections are won or lost. So you can't really say there is a prominent field in the United States at any given time. But what I'm saying is, why not look at this in a way to rebuild and say the people want real democracy, the people want a direct democracy. Let's try to position ourselves in a way that we can give them that with enough education and with enough show that we can kind of direct the conversation there, instead of continuing along the lines that we have on both sides of the equation.
Sure.
Do
I
you
don't
think that's
object to
fair
that.
though? Yeah.
I think that part of it's fair. I don't think that votes for Trump were votes for liberation or votes that were rejecting the two-party system as it is. I think that many votes for Trump were because they have put their blind faith in an
Mm.
ideologue,
MAGA.
and th- they would rather not think, and they would rather outsource all of their critical thinking and decision makings to Trump, who will tell them what to wear and what to eat and how to vaccinate their children or not vaccinate their children, and what their correct stance should be on, moral arguments, and whether there should be a Bible in every school. You know,
But mind
he's
you,
like,
mind you, the other side was the same. During the pandemic, the American government didn't tell people you're allowed to vaccinate or not vaccinate or live freely. It took a position of saying vaccinate, and that became kind of
Trump was the president during the pandemic.
at the
So
beginning. At the
just as a
beginning,
reminder.
no, no, just no. That's I'm not going to accept that, because just as a reminder, he was the president at the opening of the pandemic. Throughout the entire pandemic session, it was Biden as president. If I recall
It was
correctly,
Biden as
Biden
president.
came in January 2020.
Yes.
The pandemic
So
started a few months before that. And it wasn't even,
no, the
when did it start?
lockdowns
When
the
did the
lockdowns
pandemic
were
start?
February February 2020. Biden came in as
Right,
president in January 2021.
exactly.
So we had a year of Trump. And if Trump hadn't bollocksed the opening of the
Hmm.
pandemic, we may not have had to have such draconian rules
But all the
later.
countries in the world did have those draconian rules, didn't they? I mean, how many? Not all, sorry,
I
but
don't know.
most. Well, I can tell you, I can tell you, you would need to be vaccinated to travel. You would need to be vaccinated to do so many things. Your kids in many countries had to be vaccinated to go back to school. If, in the beginning when the schools were on, and then they went to online schooling. And so these things happen on both sides. It wasn't a Trump or not Trump situation. But I agree with you that he has a sort of a way of doing things, which he says it's my way, or it's just my way. There's no or, right?
Yeah.
In the story, it's just my way, and he does it his way all the time, and he fights for it, right? And he kind of gets his way. We're seeing that he's getting his way and he's fighting for it. But to me, it's like, there are people who denounced the left in this election. There are people who said, I'm not continuing this route anymore, because there is also a lot of censorship, a lot of cancel culture, a lot of, we listen to everybody. Diversity is beautiful, but if you're diverse and not on our side, then you're not normal. You can't have a
I
thought.
would
You can't
agree
have
that that
freedom of
happens on
speech.
the left. but I think that that happens really in niche left communities. And I definitely know that cancel culture exists on the right too. But
On the right, no, cancel culture doesn't exist. There's no other
it,
culture to be canceled. That's the thing on the right. They're so far extreme that you don't have the liberty to get upset. See, on the right, like you mentioned, North Korea, you cannot have a mind of your own. In Trumpism right now, you can't have a mind of your own that you can get canceled for, because it will never happen that your voice emerges in
yeah,
that way.
well, if you
In the
listen
left,
to
you're
the
allowed.
stories, yes, if you listen to stories for people who have left the right, it's because they got canceled for having a question or two,
Mhm.
and the hostility that they were
Exactly.
met with. So
Very
it
early
is
on, right?
cancel very early on.
Very early on.
So very early on. So the ideas are not even allowed to bloom.
Hmm.
In the left, I mean, certainly I don't really consider myself a lefty. Um, and lefties certainly wouldn't own me as their own. But I think that there's more room for creative thought on the left at this moment in
Until it
history.
blossoms.
Yeah, I mean, but I
That's where the
also
danger
think that,
starts.
well, I danger, I don't know. I think that I don't the left I'm not a political pundit, and I don't really want to spend all like my day talking about this because I have no recourse, but there's not everybody's very dogmatic in their views. I think that we have a system that our brains aren't totally appropriately equipped for with social media, and we find that the loudest voices in the room are often the most rewarded, whether or not their rhetoric makes any sense, whether it's on the left or the right or whatever. We have a con man who has come and taken advantage of all of the holes in the system. He is a felon. He has assaulted women. He has stolen from people. The system has never been able to hold him accountable, and now he is the president. And I think that that makes everybody who is part of his cult say, I too can be a felon, assault women, take what I want, and he will protect me because he is my big daddy, cult leader man. And, for all the problems that the right has, the left has, there are plenty there. I have many, many things to criticize about lots of things, but I don't think that the left is like, hooray, now I can assault people
Hmm.
and I can steal from them and become the highest elected official in the country. I can commit treason, I can stage a revolution, and it'll all just roll off my back. I think that we are looking at these, well, it's also on the left. It's a false equivalency. Nobody on the left staged a revolution. Nobody in the left brought guns into the Capitol building. It's just not, it hasn't happened. They can fight and argue and be unproductive, but they're not trying to kill each other in this way. And they're also not trying to undermine the legal system. They're not trying to be complicit with foreign governments. They're not enriching themselves
Hmm.
to the degree that he is. And I mean, he's listed all the, like, I did a little Google search to see um, if he's mentioned any of the companies that he plans on, like it's easy to see who he's going to give government contracts to based on what stocks he says he's holding. I mean, it's just like it's such a clear cash grab. It's a different mentality, and I don't want to trade in false equivalencies here. It's not the same.
Okay. We can differ and think differently about certain things, and we can see alike about certain things. I think this conversation is exactly where the global public and the American public, on a smaller segment of that, is so far from each other and understanding each other. Because, again, like I said, I'm not going to get into it, but I can easily show you in every from Clinton to Obama to Biden how contracts were handed favorably to people that the government willed those contracts to go to. So there's a lot of equivalency between Trump and what the left does, but Trump does it as a human, one person, and he shows off about it. He shows off about his power. He says, look, I can do this. I can do criminal activity and get away with it. Nothing happens. Look at me. I'm here. I will do it. Whereas being covert about what you're doing, is a different way of doing things.
Saying that being president doesn't enrich you, no matter who you are. It is a job that enriches you. But I do think there's like an insider trading element to Trump that
Yes.
he
Yes.
flaunts.
That's what I said.
And
Exactly.
yeah, it's an insider trading, and he presents this as an aspirational thing.
Hmm.
Do I think that money is clean in the Democratic Party at all times throughout history? Of course I don't. Of course I don't I don't think that anybody becomes president because they have a servant's heart. I think they become president because they have enough of like a belief in their own specialness that they can take on this very uniquely challenging role. And so I don't think it is like the most disinterested person who steps into that role. And I don't think the most disinterested person could survive in that role and ascend through the ranks ever. I don't think, certainly Clinton, there's tons of conversations about all of his abuses of power. Like we could go into that all day long. I don't think it is the same. I don't
The
think
degree is different, of
he
course. The
the
degree is
degree
different,
is different
but
and the dose is what makes the poison, right? It, you could a glass of water is great. Like drinking 6 gallons of water in an hour,
mhm,
not so great.
mhm.
So I think that I agree with you that the system is not great, but and corrupt and deeply like unequal and and inequitable and flawed on all sides. And the celebration of the iniquity and
That's the sad
um
part.
that is the sad part. The fact that we are at a point where we say those of us are in the in group are the people who relish in the suffering of others. And we are going to give ourselves a little cute little acronym. We're going to be MAGA. We're going to be MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, because we argue against, childhood vaccines, and we're going to defluoride the water, and we're going to have everyone get polio again because, whatever is who's going to suffer the most? It's the poor people. It's the people who can't get better access to care. So, it's a deeply problematic situation. And here we are at a stage where the celebration of its iniquity, of its unfairness, of its flaws, of its unable to hold people to account
It's celebrated.
is being
She's saying celebrate.
celebrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's and
And I
that's
agree
revolting to
with
me.
you. I agree with you 100%. It is revolting. And really, what you just said is part of why Compassiviste exists. Because I looked at a world where I was in before I started what I'm doing now. I used to be in that Wall Street kind of environment, and I was doing really well. I had my own fund. I gave away $100 million because at
Yeah,
one
you told
point,
me.
I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like here I am, I'm trading gold. As soon as I hit that button, I'm like, please God, an earthquake somewhere, somebody dies, some
Yeah,
terrorist
yeah.
act, something, so that I make money. That's how you make money. Gold doesn't go spike up because Bitcoin doesn't spike up because everything's beautiful and
Nothing
everything's
happens. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
It's a still lake. No, there's a
Markets like
tsunami coming.
chaos.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
like
I
chaos.
mean, they
So
don't like chaos. They stabilize at the end of chaos, but
right,
people
but
get
that's where
rich
you
in
make your money.
chaos.
Yes. So
Yeah.
me to make $1 million in my investment, I need chaos. So I need the gods of chaos to show up every time I'm making my investments, right? And I couldn't
Yeah,
live
I
with
get
that
it.
anymore. So exactly what you're saying. It was the culture of worshiping that villain. And then here I was with the funds that I had. I would go out in a specific type of car, live in a specific type of residence, eat at a specific kind of place. And people say, oh, what a life, right? Whereas that life that they're wishing for and celebrating and respecting and recognizing is exactly the one that is creating the most inequality in the world.
Well, it's
And
the one that's hurting them,
yes,
right? It's the one they're like, I'm working a million hours in
yeah,
this unpleasant condition so that you can drive this car.
you see what I mean? And so I was like,
Yes.
this is really wrong. We shouldn't be living. This is what unsustainable life looks like, because like you can't keep doing this. So now saying that, you believe in ethics and marketing because I'm sorry to say this. I know it's your field, but marketing is not about ethics these days, right? I mean, we can agree on that. We can agree that the majority of the big star marketing people are not really caring whether their star clients are ethical or their business is ethical or the product that they're promoting is ethical. I think it's more about, did we hit the market? Did we do the job right? For that $1 million contract, or a lot bigger than that, anyways. But you come to the table and you say no ethics in marketing. And your core marketing principle is actually, and I remember this, remembering that humans are on the other side of marketing campaigns. Did I say that right?
Yes.
See, I paid
Something like
attention
that.
to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I paid attention to you
Yeah.
saying that time because I actually shared it with my team. And I said, this is so important that to remember that on the other side of our campaigns, like when we're asking for our foundation, when we're telling people to join, when we're telling people to support, to make the changes with us and everything else, to remember that there's people on the other side, not just trying to reach them so they open their wallets to us. It has to be something that we can kind of respectfully, trade in that sense. So I appreciate you saying that because that moral reform in marketing goes a long way in changing the ways that we approach each other. Marketing is not necessarily just the corporate thing that you do in your working life. It's also in our relationships. We market ourselves to each other in relationships. When you speak with people, maybe you're trying to make them like you or something. You're marketing yourself essentially, and to be honest and genuine in that way, versus trying to fake whatever it may be just to get the contract signed, is the difference in that quality of the
Yeah.
marketing.
I agree. I also think that a lot of marketing is very focused on specific transactions instead of long-term relationships with customers. So rather than instill a sense of brand loyalty or like a sense of team, right, between the client and the service or the product that they're buying, they are looking to make a quick hit.
Mm.
And from a ethical perspective, I do think that like some amount of transparency between an organization and what they need from their consumers and with the role they hope to fill in their consumers' lives sets the expectation for a healthier relationship. Yeah, so a great example of the kind of industry where a long-term relationship, not just a individual transactional relationship works is a bank, right? So you go there, you open a checking account, you open a business account, you open some sort of investment account, everything's fine and dandy. Um, and if you work with one of the biggest banks, you probably have a really nice, robust online system you can use for stuff. But if you work with one of the smaller banks, even if their fancy online banking system is less fancy, when the chips are down, um, for example, when you need a PPP loan because there's this unprecedented pandemic, it's really nice to be able to have the phone number of your banker and what works through it. And my bank at the time of the PPP loans, I was very close with my banker, with my whole bank community at that time. I felt I didn't end up applying for a loan because the nature of my work meant that I didn't really need one because I was remote and people were it it didn't feel like a I would not have felt good applying for one of those loans when I knew the people who needed them more. Um, but I did, keep an eye on how it was being done and who was servicing them and what that process was like. And I feel like it was infinitely better for people who had those closer relationships with their bankers and who understood the institutions they were working with. So when I think about knowing that there are humans on the other end of receiving marketing message, or humans also who have to deliver the product too. And thinking about how you cultivate a healthy um, teamwork sort of approach
Mm,
to delivering and using a product. I mean, obviously, banking is a good example because it's both a product and a service, and it typifies that. But like even buying a water bottle, there's somebody who's designed it, there's somebody who's thought about it. What are they trying to express with that? And what value does it add to my life? I think in today's environment with social media, like, I buy this water bottle and people say, like, well, what does it say about you? As opposed to what value does it add into your life? And like it could say all kinds of things about me, depending on who the person interpreting it is. Maybe they think like, oh, she really loves the color blue, or she's needs oh she doesn't travel long distances because otherwise she'd need a bigger bottle. Or because people can make up whatever they
or
want
she's
about what it says
environmentally
about me.
friendly because she's not using
Yeah,
a plastic bottle.
or she's yeah, exactly. Or um she doesn't like trends because it's not a Stanley bottle. Or whatever, any number of things people can make up. I can choose to reinforce or not reinforce that. But I know what it does in my life, and I can tell you exactly why I like this water bottle. It's because it has this lock function that makes it watertight, and also it has a double spout that's like a straw, but also if I'm really thirsty and working out, I can use it as like an open top. So it's very useful, and it's leak proof, and it's the size. I picked the size because I actually do not go for long distances where I won't have a like water cooler throughout the day. This is enough to get me through the day between when I go to the like kitchen and fill up my water bottle, or when I can ask for a sink somewhere. And too much is too heavy to carry. So like all of these things matter to me in the product design. And I want to know that the brands I work with are thinking about those things. I know it sounds nuts, but it means something to me. And so I like
Well,
marketing that highlights like the
it's not.
features.
Wait, it's not nuts at all when you say it may be nuts, because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, wow, your thought process is amazing, because how many brands today are thinking about, let's be the trendiest bottle out there so people buy, versus let's be the most functional and sustainable and user need friendly, so to speak, right? And you're
Yeah.
pointing that
So
out.
so if someone said like, will you market this water bottle? I would tell a million different stories about why I picked this bottle. And if I had a like if they were like, here's our bigger bottle, or here's our one with a different spout, I would say like somebody else needs the one with a different spout because maybe they have a toddler, or maybe they travel longer distance and they need more water to hold, or maybe blah blah blah. There is a story to tell about the product that isn't about how great the product is, but that is about the role the product fulfills in your life.
That is neat. That really ties in so well to, never mind marketing, to the whole sustainability, the problems we're having in the world today. Like, if people were going to market the reality of products and how they fit in your life, we would be purchasing and consuming at a much different rate and style than what's happening today. I mean, you look at fast fashion, and the way you just talked about product, branding, marketing, build, everything else, is like, I can't go back to the mall and just buy a t-shirt I know I'm going to wear once, because for an event
Yeah.
one time, because you're like, no, I can't think that way anymore. But on the other side of marketing, it's telling you, you're going to be powerful, you're going to look beautiful, all these beautiful things are coming to you with this one time wear of this t-shirt that's also not expensive, that you can just chuck away. And so overconsumption happens. That plays a role.
Yeah, I do think that like, I really love this water bottle. I'm really happy with my choice of it. That makes me feel powerful. That makes me feel smart. That makes me feel good about it. So it makes me feel like I love using it and that I will buy again from this brand. So I think the idea that like fast fashion is capitalized on like, buy this gown for your single-use thing and then throw it away because it's only $45 or whatever. They're trying to capitalize on the sense of power or personal freedoms or whatever that come from having whatever you want, whenever you want, in the moment that you want. It's possible for both things to exist at the same time, where I can say, like, this dress, I've worn it multiple times, but it's great, and I can dress it up or dress it down, and I know where it comes from, and I feel so good when I wear it because X, Y, and Z. And we just need to be very compelling about telling that story in a way that reaches audiences.
In an ethical and very humane way, basically, to express the functionality versus this campaign will hit the targets and you'll make all the profit and it'll be worth it to have hired
Yeah, I mean, I
Lizy.
think that obviously you want to tell the story to the people who are open to the story,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you don't want to like spend a lot of money. Like, I don't need to spend a lot of money selling my I do not sell this water bottle, by the way. I just use it as an example because it was right
Right.
next to me. But um I'm not going to go and start running a paid marketing campaign to everybody who has just bought a water bottle, right? Like, I want it for people who maybe haven't purchased one in the past 5 days. Um, and I want to be compelling about the story that I'm telling and highlight the offerings. But people always have a choice, and honoring their ability to understand the value of the product, if you explain it clearly, is, I think, inherently ethical. If you say, like, well, I trust that you will. I'm going to tell you the story. You have to be a really good storyteller to be a good marketer. Really lean into the storytelling component and explain why this choice is best for some people, and say, like, are you the people that it's best for?
Mm-hmm.
You know better than we do. I think that's an ethical way of reaching them. It doesn't promise anything other than what it offers,
Yes.
right? Like, this water bottle isn't here to say, like, buying it, you're going to be cool, your friends are going to love you more. You're not only are you going to be less thirsty, your skin's going to be better, you're going to have like healthier gut. I don't know, like all these crazy things
Mm-hmm.
that I see. It's just a water bottle. It's
Right.
holding water. I just wanted to show how well it does this, as opposed
Right.
to promise me a revolution in my identity.
I get that. I'm just, as you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, the way, for example, different coffee brands brand themselves and you walk into one store versus the other, not really because of the coffee, but because of how they position you and your identity while holding their cup of coffee, makes you, gravitate towards that place. When
Yeah.
I was in Canada, Starbucks came on the scene. It wasn't there from the beginning, but it came on the scene. And then we had Tim Hortons, which was, the Canadian brand. And all of a sudden there was this thing about, if you're wealthier, if you're, somehow more educated, and all these amazing qualities came with purchasing Starbucks. And then Tim Hortons kind of, started doing this sync. And people were like, ooh, Starbucks, and it became a thing. And when you talk about it, and I'm thinking to those days, I'm thinking, it's so true. Nobody was telling me about the coffee in either brand. I had no clue about the coffee in either brand. I liked, those, you know, English toffee or French vanilla here, and over there was a latte that I liked. But that was it. I didn't care which cup it came in, but that cup from Starbucks was something you walked around with because it gave you some kind of, prestige, so to speak. So that's what marketing is about. Whereas it should be, like you say, about why should you come here and why should you have our coffee? Really, really why? Versus not everything else we're wrapping into this for you.
Right. There's like a lot of different reasons, right? So there's a street near me that has a couple of different coffee shops, like a local one called French Chalk and one that is Starbucks. And then there's like other little restaurants that you could go and have like a cup of coffee, even though that's not their main thing. And sometimes if I've got like a couple of hours to kill in the afternoon, I need a place with internet. And it's like a choice, French Chuck or Starbucks. And it really depends on the kind of drink I want, right? Like, because Starbucks has all these like wacky matcha lattes and blah 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 blah. Or if I want um like this specific coffee that is grown for French chuck, okay, that's one decision. But also, like, French chuck has only one kind of seating. Starbucks has multiple kinds of seating. So if I think I want to read a book, maybe I want a chair as opposed to a coffee, like a table. So there are all of these actual decision things that I could make that are not related necessarily to what I think it says about me, but actually related to what I need in that moment to serve my interests. I think that we do a very bad job of processing what I need to serve my interests. Like, do I want a nice comfy lounge chair? Because I'm going to be like underlining a notebook, underlining a book or taking notes, or do I want like a more simple background because I'm going to be sitting there on a Zoom call with somebody? Do I want more noise? Do I want less noise? Um, yeah, you're right. It's like the Tim Horton Starbucks thing all
Yeah,
over.
yeah, it plays a big role. Now, as you're saying this, I'm starting to also kind of go into tangent of thinking when you said audience, and I'm thinking, okay, Starbucks. If we allow the corporations that really command industries in a sense, or have the the lion's share of the industries and the way to direct those industries, I think we will lose a lot of diversity, freedom, and a lot of variety because Starbucks is not catering to all. Let's just talk about the US or even New Orleans. It's not catering to all of the audience in New Orleans as a population. It's catering to a specific population within, your city. And if it becomes big enough that there is no other coffee shop, for example, then the audience has no diversity. They just, homogenize into this one strand of what Starbucks is selling. And I think, you had told me before how important it is to have diversity. You actually you invest. I mean, you're part of the W Fund, and you're involved in diversity issues. And I think I'm starting to see it from this place where diversity also allows, when you put money into diversity and entrepreneurship from a diverse perspective, it allows that kind of growth in your audience so that you can cater to different audiences and have a more diverse and robust community by which you can be more ethical and honest about your marketing, because you're not going to lie to the person who's not your target just to make them buy your product, because there is something for everyone.
I agree. I also say go back to the Starbucks example. I am sometimes a Starbucks buyer. I'm sometimes a French truck buyer. I'm sometimes a CC's coffee buyer. Sometimes I want tea, like whatever. There is room in my like drinking universe, my like caffeinated beverages universe for more than one product. And I like when I can select the product that meets my need exactly then. So, like, sometimes what I need is a drive-through Starbucks because I'm on the road and there's a drive-through Starbucks and I have 5 minutes, and that is the thing that. But sometimes I want a slower experience because I'm having a meeting. And then I pick like a different coffee shop, or I pick a tea place that specializes in tea, or I pick a bakery or whatever it is, right? So, like, having more options allows for more satisfying consumer experiences, um, in terms of a like diversity of offerings level. Imagine what options we haven't yet discovered because money has been concentrated in the hands of a privileged few in this country and around the world for time immemorial, right? So, like, what have we not even had the opportunity to experience because people who would come up with those ideas don't have money to turn them into a reality?
And you know what? We travel around the world as that same privileged class to find out about those realities that we ourselves are not allowing to flourish. So as a rich person, as a wealthy person, you will take those exotic trips to middle of nowhere Earth, right? And have this like, and it's surprising because all these brands know you're coming. So there's a Four Seasons in the middle of poverty, right? And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you show up there and you're like, okay, great, I like the hotel, everything's beautiful. Now let me go out and venture. And you go out and you know, taste their food, their culture, everything's so different, and you get that, you get your dose of diversity, right? But then you never think, I am the reason why this doesn't exist on a grander, global, more appreciated artistic scale of, wow, look at what we can create. Because I'm the one who comes up with Starbucks and then, you know, becomes a monster. And then I just don't allow anything else to exist. But then, you know, we go on our free time and we don't tell anyone, but we go on our free time and we go and we find all these other places that we want these diverse experiences. So what you're doing essentially with, you know, the am I saying this right? The emerging philanthropists of New Orleans.
But no, Emerging
Yeah. Okay.
Philanthropists of New Orleans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did say it right. Great. So EPNO, you know, you're there, and basically what you guys do there, and with the W Fund as well. I mean, they kind of go hand in hand in my sense of bringing
Yeah,
that to
I
life,
sort of
right?
see them as two sides of the same coin, where
Yeah.
the W Fund is a like a financial vehicle for investors who want to invest um in who want to like get a little bit of VC sort of experience in investing in companies that are led by underrepresented founders. And so like women, people of color, um, and in a large way cater to unfulfilled market demands because many VCs and venture funds and accelerators and whatever, the same voices are saying, I have a problem. So it's the same problem everybody's trying to solve as opposed to other problems that maybe are um, unique to women or unique to people of color, or unique to people who are living in a region of the country that's not Silicon Valley. So, or not maybe even unique, but is most presently felt. So like if you have a product that can solve for that or a service that can solve for that, suddenly everyone, even in Silicon Valley, is like, aha, I didn't, is somebody else like thought of this and now I realize how much value it's added to me. Um, so so I do think that that is one side of like sort of opening up the economy to be more equitable. With EPNO, Emerging Philanthropists of New Orleans, obviously it's much more localized. It's New Orleans based. It is a nonprofit program where we, and I say we because I'm on the advisory board, every year run a cohort of people who want to learn how to be responsible philanthropists. Um, Go and they put in $500 of their own money, and then we match their money. We put them into focus groups like food, for example, or health and wellness, education. Like there are all these like sort of niche groups that we've identified as being core areas that are ripe for um, or that are in need of, instead of ripe for disruption, which would be the venture capital term, I would say in need of support in the philanthropy world,
Hmm.
and to say that we're going to teach you what it's like to look to like learn about the landscape of human rights and justice or food sourcing or housing or climate change or whatever, and then you and your team are going to put together a focus statement and you're going to invite local nonprofits to apply for a grant. That's the sort of combination of the $500 that's matched by us that you've given plus the $500 that's matched by us by everybody else in your team. And then you go through the process of reviewing whether the applicants meet your focus statement, your goals, and narrowing it down, and then finally awarding a grant. And they're small grants, they're usually in the $10,000 range, depends a little bit on how many people are in a class each year. But um, they can make a huge difference. And the idea is to change the way that people see themselves in relation. I mean, there are a lot of goals. I mean, the goals are to help all the nonprofits. The goals are to educate people about what the nonprofit landscape is, and to, strengthen the relationships between members of the community and on all these different areas. But one of the goals, and one of the ones that's most interesting to me, is to democratize the idea of who can be a philanthropist. You give $5, if you give 5 minutes, you are a philanthropist.
Hmm.
You are a philanthropist. Your philanthropy matters as much as Bill Gates, as much as Rockefeller Foundation, as much of any of these things. You are a philanthropist, and own that title and claim that title, and like use it, because explain yourself as a philanthropist. I care about food access. I care about environmental justice. I care about death care. Last year, the group that I was sort of helping through it um, awarded a grant to a nonprofit called Wake.edu, and they do death care education. And I was just like, I'd never thought about it from this perspective. I wasn't aware of the holes that the system left in the community with death care and with people who are dealing with the recently, the bereaved family who's have trouble getting bodies back for burial, and how to bury sustainably and all these other things I'd not thought about, right? But I learned more by being part of this community and going through this exercise. Even though I've done this exercise multiple times as a board member, there's just always so much um, for me to learn, and seeing wow, a little money went such a long way. $10,000 went such a long way in this organization. And my contribution made a huge difference, and that it ripples, because if I allow Wake to cover their operating expenses for X number of years, then I'm allowing them to continue to operate and to serve more people and to raise more money and to get more, and to grow. And my philanthropy is as important as anybody else's. And I really hope that everyone who's touched by this program learns to see themselves as a philanthropist, and own the empowerment and the influence that comes with that. I care about my community. I listen to what my community needs, because it's an empowerment that requires listening to. It's not here's my idea of what
Hmm.
success looks like. I want everybody to be eating 5 apples a day, and have I am not remaking the community in my own image, but I am remaking my idea of what I can contribute in the image of what the community tells me they need.
I really like
I mean, I
the
know that was a lot of information.
yes, but you know what? It was very clear, and I really like that you are doing this in the sense that imagine, like you said, the ripple effect. Imagine the ripple effect being not city of New Orleans, but the country of the United States, in communities doing this, chapters of, you know, EPNY for New York,
Yeah.
EPLA, EP, everywhere. And that becomes really something. And I think I would really want to be a part of what you're doing, in that sense of kind of, taking the model here and franchising it, so to speak, across different places, because this really works. There's a lot of people out there who actually, because we're in this space too. We do have a nonprofit in Compassiviste. So what we do there is we notice a lot of people want to help and contribute and give and be a part of something, but they are either feeling that they have to give to a large organization that they can trust, like the United Way, or something, the Red Cross, or whatever,
Yeah.
in moments of, situations, or they find themselves, where do I give? How does this impact my community? I have so many questions before I give my hard-earned money, because they're not all, like you said, Bill Gates. These are a lot of people who are giving $500, but that $500 is like Bill Gates giving $30 billion.
Oh, yes.
You see what I
Yes,
mean?
yes,
It
yes.
matters to them what they're trying to do with the money, and they're passionate. So when they come to the table with their money, they're bringing a lot of passion as well. And I think your model really fits in with the majority of Americans who are giving their money that way, in the sense that they can be more involved in what's going on and be a really contributing arm of how they are doing this.
Yeah. Okay, so one thing it's important to note is that EPNO has $500 is a lot of money for some people, and so we don't want to, like, not everyone can just write a check for $500. You can do payment plans. You can do 100 up front and then, pay off the rest over the course of the cohort experience, because we don't want to limit it to people who have $500
Right.
sitting in the bank. Um,
Diversity. You
and
want everybody to
yeah,
join.
diverse. Yes. And also, like, a goal would be to invite people to sponsor folks who wouldn't have it, because not everybody has it available, but they do have the the drive to do it. So that's something I think is notable. I would also say the giving circle model of, like, putting people in groups and seeing how their dollars matched by us amplifies is not unheard of. Like, people do giving circles in all kinds of circumstances, but the education piece I feel is really core to this, because it gives people, like, a sense of literacy about this environment that they're operating in. And um, there's a big emphasis on listening to the needs of the community already there. So, like, I was talking to one guy who was like, I ran into him at, like, a networking thing, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I have this business." I don't even remember what it was. It was a long time ago. But what the thing that stuck with me is, like, I need a place to donate money, and I need it to be like a good Christmas card picture. And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "Nobody wants to see pictures of an office. They want to see kids opening presents." And I was like, "Okay, but if you want to donate to this place, what I know this organization really needs right now is money to fund a Spanish language translator, because right now they can only serve English language um like customers or people with this need. I know that doesn't make a great Christmas card, but do you trust this organization to allocate their funds according to what the population needs? Or are you going to be like, I insist on a big gift giving session so that you can take a picture?" Because that is not responsible philanthropy. That is,
But you see a lot of that. Let me tell you that.
yeah, you see, like, why don't you just hire actors and stage a picture? Like, that's a better use of your funds. It'll cost less to, like, have a photo shoot than actually, like, fill a children's hospital ward with gifts. And, like, part of what is central to EPNO, or you might get different answers if you talk to different people involved in the community. In my perspective, is the idea of trust-based philanthropy. That when we listen to the nonprofits that we talk to, they are in this field serving their communities. They get to tell us what they need help with. And so one of the things that's, like, my big takeaway from my years working with EPNO, which I think I started in 2019, is that unrestricted funding is great. You can give it to them and be like, use it however you need. If you need to pay to have your electricity bills covered, or get a Spanish language translator, or to throw a Christmas party, or to, like, give away a bunch of food on Thanksgiving, or to um, bus some seniors to the voting booths, like, any number of it, you will know. I don't know. I only have ideas.
We're so aligned in that way. Wow. It's almost scary how aligned we are in what you just said there. I love what you just said there. And you know what? A lot of it comes from community sense. I mean, you have this deep, deep, deep sense of wanting to be one with your community. I mean, I hear it from your story of your banking relationship here, your story with EPNO, and and then I think to myself again, with the way you present your ideals in marketing and the ethics, you have this collectivist mentality to support a better future from your community, and then just like expand it outwards as much as the reach can be. So let me ask you this: how does One More Thing, your company, factor into all of these things?
Well, a girl needs to make a living on more than just thinking all day, which I would love to do. But um, one more thing is my marketing business. I do strategic marketing and communications, and I've branched out just a little bit recently. I mentioned Daniela Messinak Young, who's a cult expert client of mine. I'm doing a little bit of talent management for her because she's an author and an influencer, and I'm helping her sort of streamline her operations and reach new audiences. I think it sort of falls under the larger umbrella of marketing, but it does tie a little bit into my music industry past, where I worked with talent, helping them position themselves in like a very complicated landscape. But um, yeah, everything from like writing newsletters in a way that helps people reach their audience, with a compelling message, in a way like whether it's brand development, what are your core brand identity pieces? What do you want your brand to look, feel, and experience like to the consumer? And also, it's not like helping people understand that it's not forever, right? Like, I like people to say, like, your brand needs to do one thing today, but the world moves and your brand also needs to be responsive to that. So, look at Coca-Cola, for example. They've had all kinds of interesting brands. They've changed the labels, they changed the formulation. Like, I think about the only thing that hasn't changed about their brand is like the font and the red. But
I was going to say the red.
yeah, and but they've evolved to meet like the zeitgeist of the moment. So, um, encouraging people to think of their brand as a living being thing and respond and step up to meet the moment, um, in the way they communicate and the stories they tell, and also the products and services they offer, which is usually not my department, but helping to see, well, how could this product be used in a different way, or serve a different population, is one of the things I do. I help write website copy, or I write website copy. I do social media strategy. I do ad campaign copy and video copy, all of the standard marketing stuff. I just do it through the lens that I bring, which is that the the product has a value, and it's our job to tell the story of the value, and to do that as compellingly as possible. Um,
And I love that you do it with such passion to ethics and passion to being true to the brand, the people on the other side who are giving you money to make this purchase, and your role in how you are allowing people to make this purchase. Because I always also feel that in that marketing or advertising space, how do you sleep at night when you made this beautiful, amazing advertising for this product that everybody's going to buy tomorrow because it was one of the best advertising, 30 seconds on TV, but this product is not what you're advertising. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so,
I just it's that, like, I get that is such a hypothetical problem for me because I have never done that.
yeah,
I have never
that's what I mean.
it's
That's
so
so beautiful.
I'm sure that there are people who do have that problem, but I can only imagine what it's like.
No, no, actually, you know what's funny? I've spoken with people who we would say have that problem, but to them, they don't have that problem because to them, it's like, no, the numbers, look at the numbers. We hit that campaign out of the park. Nobody came close to what we did on that product. Like that's the way they see it. They see it in just the figures and not the relationships, not the storytelling, not the all the factors that you take into consideration. And I think if there are more of you in the world in this industry, then what starts happening is we can still sell our products as long as we honestly tell people what good these products are bringing to the table.
Yeah, and
We don't
I
need to
wanna start.
cheat.
Hmm? What was
We
the
don't need
last thing?
we don't need to cheat
You don't need to
in
cheat.
the marketing.
Yeah. I wanna bring this back because I was thinking as I was talking and you were sort of recapping my collectivist mentality. I was thinking back to our conversation from earlier about Trump and why it's so, like, I am a collectivist, and I all and you might think like, um I do sort of believe that there is a superficial conflict to the way that it presents when I say, like, I'm so disappointed that people voted for that. And then I say, at the same time, like in the next breath, I say, we have to listen to what the people want when I'm talking about ethno. And it doesn't, I want to clarify here that anybody who flags that as being a like conflict or Hippocratic way for me to speak, I hear what you're saying, but it isn't Hippocratic to me because, or hypocritical to me. Hippocratic is a medical oath. It's not hypocritical to me because I don't actually believe that any of the messaging coming out of the Trump camp is truthful or accurate or collectively oriented. And therefore, when I listen to the people who spit it back to me, I believe that the information they've been fed is wrong. And I am sympathetic to them
Hmm.
because I feel like they have been lied to. They have been lied to in a lot of ways, and so they are coming back to me with information that is useless. They have bad data.
Lizy, welcome to the world and the age of misinformation and even scarier, disinformation, where you
Yes,
actively push that.
yes. So I want to be clear that while I say I trust the nonprofits that are asking me for money or that are, applying for grants or whatever, I trust them when they tell me what they need to use that money for, and I trust them to know how to use it successfully and to act in the best interest of themselves and their constituents. I trust them because I trust that their data is good, and that's just because I know them and because I live in this community and I work in this space too. So I can reality test what they're saying. I can check it. I I don't think that eliminating childhood vaccines or radically reducing it or saying that, like, getting the fluoride out of the water or whatever. I believe that people sincerely think that it is the right choice for them. I do not believe it is the right choice for them. And I am sad for them that they are acting in an interest that is like hurtful to their own well-being. And that is what makes me so angry. And so I just wanted to address, because I've been very hard on the cult of Trump in this conversation, and what I see as like thought control and behavior control and emotion control, which is like, if you have any knowledge on like cult scholarship, you'll know that there's like an influence continuum and the idea of like self-policing. I've been very hard on them in this conversation because I believe that they have hit sort of an unhealthy level of thought, emotion, behavior. There's like the bite model: behavior, information, thought, emotional control. I feel like they've hit an unhealthy amount of influence and are no longer able to make decisions in their own best interest. And that model is developed by a guy named Stephen Hassan. If you're interested, um, highly recommend Yanya Lalich's work on this. And of course, in my own self-interest, definitely everybody check out Daniela Messina-Young. She wrote a book called Uncultured about growing up in a cult. And then she joined the army and she served her tours of duty in Afghanistan. And she talks about the way that cult-like influence can lead us to make not optimal decisions in a myriad of circumstances, among other things. Danielle is great. She's a very robust, very deep thinker, and I'm summing her up in one sentence here. But I just want to be clear, because as I was having this conversation and we were talking, you said, like, you gave me such a lovely compliment on being a collectivist. I want to just say yes, and that's not the same as believing that groups or any single group or any single person who leads a group should have the ability to influence many people to act in a way that is not safe or or
It's,
um, self-interested in the most basic ways.
but the reason I don't argue with a lot of people when it comes to these kind of topics is because I could right now reverse the conversation to Martin Luther King, and it will be identical to Trump from the perspective of a person who's looking at it as a person who's not agreeing with that. So imagine you're racist, imagine you're KKK, and now this person comes up, shoots up into the world, and his name's Martin Luther King, and you're like, this is dangerous for America. This is going to destroy America. This is going to be the end of America. How dare, he's brainwashing people. Why is the government not doing anything about it? Oh my God, look at what's happening. He's riled up 1 million people, and we should get rid of him, right? And so this happens. So it's all perspective. There is
It
no,
is.
there's
It
no
is.
solid truth. So I stop arguing with people when they make such statements, because that is the fascism to me. They make such statements that this is wrong. Saying this is wrong is in itself wrong. What I believe, I don't subscribe to that, because even if the person knew what Trump is doing, some people may vote because that is what they want. So when you go back to history again, the Holocaust happened. A lot of people bought into it,
Wanted it. Yeah,
and a
yeah.
lot of people did want it, so there's two different types of people in there. But to say from that person's perspective who wanted it that it was wrong, they can't see it as wrong, but we morally
I
understand that it's
agree.
wrong today.
I agree. I agree. And in this moment, in this particular moment today, a week out from the election, I am working hard to get my anger under control, because it
And
is
no,
tempting
it's
for me.
fine. It's
It
fine to
is
be angry.
tempting for me to be angry at the voters. And then some of them I am, because I know that some of them voted in their own self-interest, and then I
Yes.
know that others voted um because I thought that was the best choice for reasons like that we talked about in our last, like the lack of education, terrible civic education in this
Hmm.
country. I would point out that Martin Luther King Jr. as a historical figure, and I guess the same argument could be made in a similar way to Trump, although I would say there are some key points that are different, is that he was one of many leaders that emerged from an organic civil rights movement that came from a very clear oppression of a faction of people of which he was a part. He was
Malcolm X.
part of that group of people. Yes, he was Martin Luther King Jr. was a black man. He, served black people in his ministry. He was this was a tide that was building, and he was part of the community. Trump saw a tide that was like a rising tide of angry people, of which he was not a part of. He was never a working class coal miner with black lung, and he never had to worry about health care. He never had to worry about abortion rights. He's never had to worry about any of those things. And he was like, I anoint you, I am the leader of you, people who I cannot relate to. I am going to be your figurehead. And I think that the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. was representing his own people and Trump has just chosen people that he feels needed a leader is a very big difference. And
That is a difference, but I mean, you understand how from an
I do,
outsider, right? So
from
then,
an outsider's
right, and
perspective,
then going into that difference that you're talking about, Gandhi, upper middle class India, lawyer, living in London, UK, having a law practice of his own, getting on a boat, coming back to India to help farmers of all people, bringing them together, saying, I will be your leader, let us get the country back. That is kind of Trump in the good, the same way, like, he's an answer. Or you have some of the organized religion today, but going back, some of the prophets that have the religions today, like Muhammad, for example, or Moses. Moses was, a prince. He comes back, he saves the slaves, right? I mean, this is the story as it's told. And he walks them all the way to a new place and says, settle here you go, let me sort you out, and blah, blah, blah. This is one person from hierarchy coming in and saving people who believe in it. So it's just a matter of how
Moses
we think.
Moses had a Moses had to have play the ultimate sacrifice. He wasn't allowed in. I don't know how much you know about the Passover story, but anyways.
No, I do know. I do know a lot about that
So
because
he
I'm
was he,
educated in that, so I
so
can speak with
he
that.
he was able to free the slaves, but he was never allowed to get to the promised land, right?
Right.
Um, so that's an equalizer in some ways. Um, and I hear your point about Gandhi. I wish I had more
But
knowledge
then
about the context.
but even about Moses, it's one of the stories, because that is the
Yes,
story that's told from a Jewish perspective and from one sect of a Jewish perspective. Now you
totally,
go to Islam, it's a complete different story of what happened.
completely do.
You see what I
I
mean?
I I understand. truth is always
Subjective.
well, it's always told by the victors, and it's also always interpreted by the audience. And that's just a reality. And as much as I want to be so relativist that I can say it's easy to paint two equally disastrous pictures if Harris won the election or Trump won the election. They're equally disastrous based on my perspective, or a general world perspective that is unspecific to me. In this case, I just cannot. I cannot in my heart. I cannot look at those things as being equally harmful or beneficial. Um, and perhaps that is a failure of imagination on my part. And I am willing to say, like, certainly I think I'm right.
Mhm.
I know lots of people don't, but I have wrestled with this, like actively wrestled with it and tried to come to a place where I can um you know on like I've told myself, well, all of these people that I'm like in the grocery store with now, probably because statistically Louisiana's full of red voters, probably think this, like, the grocery store is going to get better next month. So like maybe I can be hopeful because all of these people, I'm the only one who doesn't think that. But I can't. I haven't gotten there yet. And maybe I will, and maybe I won't.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah.
And you know
I
what? It's not the end of the world. I keep telling people on both sides, it's not the end of the world. It's just a phase, a portion. It's only 4 years through which both sides can kind of, think about whether they're going to come back stronger or whether they're going to fix what's wrong or whether this is going to somehow work miraculously and people are going to see eye to eye and become more collectivist about it and try to resolve the issues. We don't know that. We're just going to have to find out because the second term is not going to be much like the first. I think there's a lot more experience. There's a lot more power involved. There's a lot more dictation, whereas the first session was more experimental for Trump. And I think you're seeing that with the appointments he's making, and you're seeing that with the way that this is transpiring. So I always look for the hope because I really believe this, and it sounds cliche, but I believe this. Until I'm alive, I have momentum.
yeah, I
And hopefully when I die, I still have momentum by what I've left behind in force for people. So when we spoke about Martin Luther King's alive to me. He may be in a grave, he may be dead as the body, but the spirit, that's not, no, oh, that's so alive. I've changed so much because of that person. Jesus is alive. Moses is alive. Those people, Muhammad, those people, Gandhi, all these people are alive to me. You look at Mother Teresa and the way that she took on starting something from nothing and growing it to this, regardless of all the stories they say, the hope and the aspiration of being able to do what she did. Those people are alive in my mind. They're the reason I keep pushing. When Jane Goodall passes away, she doesn't die for me. She just becomes inspiration. I mean, I don't see her as much now that I do when she passes away. So what is it to me if she's actually alive or not, right? I mean, it's not like I have coffee with her every day. I wish I could, but I can't. So when she passes away, she's still the same presence for me. So
yeah, Amelia Earhart is
there
still
you go.
out there. Yeah, she's still a adventurer that we all want to be like. I get
Exactly.
it. I do.
So have that hope, hold that, right? Hold that and work on it and build on it, and you'll see things start panning out, things start working out. The universe has this way of doing that, you know. And a lot of people spend a lot of time studying those kind of things and effects and how this functions, but I don't know how it happens, but I know it happens, and that's enough for me.
Yeah, it's a difficult moment for me. I'm sure that you and I will stay in touch and we
Hmm.
will circle back on this. It is a difficult moment, um, a challenging moment on a lot of levels. But
But one day you'll look back at yourself on that screen in this specific moment, and you will say, "Wow, why was I thinking that depressively when look where the world is today. And
We'll
look at the
see.
impact I've made because I believe and I'm strong and I'm a strong woman. You know, that's what you gotta do that, right? And then things will work. You'll see. I'm gonna ask you two questions that are short and quick for a change.
Let's do it.
Right. The first one's very easy. What rule do you live by that you'd share with the audience? One rule that you think you really, really hold on to this all the time.
Gosh, that's a tough question.
It
There's
is a
so
tough
many.
question.
I'll throw it back to my elementary school secular humanist upbringing. Deed, not creed. It's about what you do and not what you believe. I don't know if that
It's
was a
so it's
straight
so
Felix Adler
easy,
quote, but
so easy to ask you difficult questions because I'm not here shivering for you to say something psychotic that I have to like ask you to repeat yourself or try to make sense of it. The things you say are very beautiful. They're very powerful, and they're very much relatable and important in the world today. So that answer, I'm gonna just highlight that answer right there.
yeah, highlight that answer. I don't know if it's a direct Felix Adler quote, but it's definitely something that they speak a lot in the secular humanist
Mm-hmm.
community and the ethical culture community. But it is something that I learned at like the age of 4 and have carried with me forward. It's not however you identify what your beliefs are, it's what you do that makes a difference.
And really, I, I I always tell people it's not your because I have a lot of religious people around me in the sense of friends or family members and stuff. And I always tell them, I say, you're there praying and doing all these traditional, things that you have to do on a daily basis. Like if you're a Muslim, all your prayers or all the things that you have to adhere to. In the same breath, you do nothing actionable that shows yourself as this member of the community that is, conducive to a better world. I mean, it's great that you're praying on time 5 times a day as a Muslim. That's great. Okay. It's great that you're going to your synagogue. It's great that you're going to your church. And it's great that you're donating to the church and all of that stuff. But the moment you come out of church and, you go do whatever you're doing that may be really, really immoral, how do you balance? Like, what's the point of going to church then? So to me, it's kind of very, I like what you said. Now, last question. How do people reach you for information, collaboration, to hire you as the ethical marketer? Because I want people to do that. When people come to you
Yeah,
and
please
say
hire me.
ethical, yes, please hire Lizy, and we're going to promote hiring you because we're going to put you on our gratitude page too. And we're going to push, one more thing because I really believe that you can make a difference by bringing ethics into why people are in the business they're in. So, what's the best way of people getting to, and also for the philanthropy thing, because I think it's beautiful, it's amazing. Some people may come to you and say, "Hey, we want to start a chapter in Chicago." So, you know,
So, okay, so I for the philanthropy stuff, EPNO, it's a program of the Greater New Orleans Foundation. So, if you Google Emerging Philanthropists of New Orleans or the Greater New Orleans Foundation, you should find it. The URL I will send you so that you
we'll
can
we'll
like
we'll
post it
post all
wherever.
the links. Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure what it is right now because I think it's like a subpage of a subpage. Um, and then my personal website is onemorethinglLC.com. You can always email me at Lizy@onemorethinglLC.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, post all of my links. And I was going to say one great thing if you're interested in hiring me because of my ethics is that I work almost exclusively with other people who are like actively working on being ethical people in terms of like who I partner with and who I can refer folks to. So I love when people come to me because of that because I'm like, great. I have like, if you need somebody to host your website, I know someone who can do that, who's great. If you need a graphic designer, I know someone who can do that. That's great. Like, yes, the extension. So you get like depending on what your needs are, I can help you build a values-based team. And if I'm not the right person for you, if you really just need someone to like develop your website, I can put you in touch with someone who can do that too. So yeah, I really hope you're right. I really do. Right now I'm like trying to find that hope, but I just need a little more time. Yeah. Oof. What a ride. To take it back to Trump after you said collectivism, because I realized it sounded like I was arguing against myself, but I'm really not. Yeah. It just felt like I was like, I can hear why it would feel like a contradiction, right? Like this many people felt like this was the path forward, and here I am being like, you're all wrong. But I just feel like if the source of information, if you what's in the well comes up in the bucket, right? And if the well is full of shit, then the bucket is also full of shit. And I just wanted to make that sure. Sounds great. Thank you so much for your time.